Welcome to another exciting episode. Today's episode is all about business and burnout from the fabulous Kayla from KK Artistry. I'm your host, Brianna, lash educator, mentor, and your guide for all things lash-worthy. Kayla is also the owner and creator of Educated Artistry podcast on Spotify. If you haven't had the chance to discover Kayla as of yet, Kayla is transforming the way we as lash educators and mentors educate our students and as lash artists price our lash services. Kayla deep dives into how we can avoid burnout and remember that dream we once had of structuring our business around our lives instead of our lives around our businesses. Kayla also has had the opportunity to expand her business and features many extraordinary lash gods on her podcast series. Today, in this episode, we're going to be exploring and uncovering the journey that led Kayla on this innovative approach, hear her insights into the latest pricing trend and the impact that she's had all over the lash industry. So welcome, Kayla. It's a really big pleasure to have you a part of our series and kicking off our first webinar.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's so cool to be able to actually kind of talk. I feel like we've talked a lot on TikTok and Instagram, but never like this. So I'm super excited.
Me too. So I thought we'd kick it off with what inspired you to create your powerhouse pricing masterclass and the events leading up to it, and what prompted you to see this kind of pricing change in the industry.
Yeah, well, I started the lash industry in 2015, and then in 2016, I was an employee for a year, W-2 employee, and then I moved into being my own business. And there was nothing taught about pricing, like knowing your numbers, or really anything that came to like the business side of things. So I kind of just copy and pasted what the salon's pricing was and just did the same thing for my business. And it was in 2018, I took a course with Trina from Maven Artistry, and she even just talked about like pricing hourly. And I was like, wait, what the heck is pricing hourly? Like that sounds really weird. Like that doesn't make sense, right? But it was kind of something where I just started realizing I'm like, actually, I don't even know if the numbers I have are profitable. I don't even know if these prices make sense for the amount of time that I'm booking out. So that's kind of where I just started working and playing around with my numbers and going through what my current numbers were. And I realized how they were all over the place.
I even think that I thought sometimes the same thing when I was watching you and you explaining it. I was like, hourly? That doesn't make any sense. Why would somebody charge hourly? And it wasn't
Yeah.
until you broke it down that I was like, oh.
Yeah. So I can actually, if you want me, I can show. I made slides for this because it can be kind of confusing to like explain all the numbers. And so I
Yeah.
have a visual. If this is a good time. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, so take us through the step-by-step process of how you do charge hourly instead of by rate.
What I first did and what I suggest that everybody does, and they're like, why hourly? That sounds really dumb, is to just take all of your current prices that you have right now, all of your service, your entire service menu, write it down. Now, I had a really simplified service menu at this time. So I just had a classic full set, a volume full set, a classic fill, and a volume fill. Then I wrote out all of the amount of time that I would book out for each one of these services. So you can see here. And this is a really simple math formula where you're going to take your service price and you're going to just divide it by the service duration that you have. Even just starting with my classic and my volume, obviously we take 200 divided by 2. That breaks down to $100 an hour. Same with volume. So 300 divided by 3, $100 an hour. So it's like, okay, cool. Like I'm making consistent hourly rates for both of those services. Then I went to my classic fills where I was booking out an hour, so $75 an hour. But it kind of made me think, I was like, why is my time $25 an hour? Why is this hour of my time only worth $75, where an hour of my time doing a full set is worth $100, right? Because I'm like, essentially we're doing the same thing with lashes. We're mapping, we're prepping, we're dipping, we're isolating, dipping a lash extension and adhesive, placing it, you know, it's the same amount of time. So it's like, why am I now $25 an hour less valuable because I'm doing a fill compared to a full set? So that's just kind of where I was like, whoa, that's a huge difference. Like I'd rather be doing full sets all day at that rate, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So then my volume fills, which were my best selling service. And when I got certified, I think I started doing volume in like 2017. And obviously they took more time, especially if you're hand making fans, they're going to take a little bit more time than what a classic set does. So I kind of thought, hey, a $20 upsell, I'm adding a half an hour. I was like, this is a good thing. I'm making more money. Well, when I did the math of dividing the 95 by 1.5, it only was bringing in $63.33 an hour. So although this was my best selling service, this is mainly what I was booked out with. It was the one that made me the least amount of money for my time. So that kind of blew my mind right there. And I always suggest that everybody does this with their menu. This is like the first step, just to even see where you are right now, right?
Just break down the numbers just to see what's happening.
Yeah, because that's our first step. We're not even getting into, what your expenses are and everything. We just need to see kind of where you're at right now. And with the people that I've worked with, what I've noticed a lot is that I see a lot of people in this higher hourly rates are their full sets, and that their lower rates, and usually their lowest is going to be volume or mega volume fills. And it just kind of blows my mind too, because I'm like, full sets we don't do very often, especially when you're established and have clients repeating. You're not doing full sets as often. Like, your fills are really your bread and butter. And really quick, I'll just give kind of a breakdown. This was something where I was like, okay, if I would have only done classic fills instead of volume fills, like, how much money did I lose? Because we have about a $12 an hour difference here.
Yeah.
This is just the formula for anybody who wants to do this for finding their current hourly rates. So if I only did classic fills at the price point that I was at, and this is where I'm like, people are losing money, right? There was a $12 difference between classic and volume. So if I was working 40 hours a week, $12 times 40, that was $480 a week that I could have made extra if I only did classic fills. And then breaking that down next, 480 times 4, that is $1,920 a month that I could have made only doing classic fills at those prices. And then that brought us to $23,000 a year. And that was another thing.
It's such
right.
a loss.
And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like I could have only been doing classic lashes at my prices, or charged, the $75 for an hour fill, and made $23,000 more. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. So this is just the difference between classic and volume, like refills. This isn't even the difference that you would be losing if you were to be charging 36 something that you're missing from your hourly rate on a full set.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I was just like, I'm going to do it through fills because that's like what I'm mostly booked out with. Yeah. And that kind of blew my mind. So that's where I'm saying with like these hourly rates, to find your hourly rate is different, right? Everybody, I think you had a question about this.
If you're a younger lash artist, like if you're new to the industry and your application time is not the same as someone who is compared to a veteran lash artist, and you're maybe doing a 4-hour set instead of a 2-hour set for a full set or a refill, depending on how long it takes, what would you do in a situation like that?
Yeah. So no matter what, our next step is that we have to understand what is our overhead expenses. Like, how much does it cost us to run our business? Now, when we're starting, I'm going to say all of us, but a good majority of us are probably doing it on the side to build. So maybe our overhead expenses aren't as high, or we don't need to charge as high of an hourly rate while we're building.
So like salon expenses, electricity, water, all those extra costs, because you're probably most likely running it from home.
Exactly. So when you're starting, and it's funny because I always have people, I have them figure out what their monthly expenses are for their business, right? What all the little things, even like your Spotify subscription, like what are your monthly expenses? What is it going to cost you to run your business every month? And then how much do you need to pay yourself per month? Because I think that's something too that a lot of people just teach, like, oh, what are your business expenses? Okay, that's what you need to make. And then when you like make more, then it's like you compare yourself. But I'm like, a lot of us go into this solo. And for me, I need to make sure I can pay myself, right? I don't have a significant other or anybody else. I don't have another job supplementing any income. So I always say your business expenses and your personal expenses, which are like maybe your rent, your car payment, like your must-have personal expenses that you need to survive, right? And have you figure out what that number is. And then we need to figure out how many hours do you have available for sale? How many hours do you actually have available for people to book with you? And that's going to help us give you your hourly rate. And that's your minimum hourly rate. And usually it's pretty low. It could be anywhere from like $20 to $30 an hour, which is like fairly low for pricing.
So in Melbourne, we're based in different areas of the world. So for
Mhm.
Melbourne, Australia, our hourly rate that we tell students that they should be charging just at the beginning, just so they're learning and they're able to replace their stock supplies, at least charge a model $40 so that you can replace what you're spending and then continue to grow.
Yeah, it's like you have to make sure that you're at least covering your expenses, right? If you have something else supplementing your personal stuff, then it makes sense. Like, okay, I just need to make sure that I'm covering my business expenses right now. So I am growing, I'm learning, I'm getting content, I'm getting reviews. But then as you grow, maybe that thing that's supplementing your personal expenses, you're gonna transition. And that's the thing is a lot of people, they don't like to raise their prices. They're scared to raise them and they feel bad. Okay, but if you're not bringing in that income from this other maybe job that was supplementing that, how are you going to now pay yourself? That's where I say, like, with the personal expenses does need to come in at some point, right? Lashing is your only job. So
How would you explain it if we were to apply this to our lash menu for a client to see what approach would you take in terms of wording and structuring like the menu? How would you present it as an hourly service with payment by the hour, or would you calculate the hours needed to complete the service and then list that as the total service?
yeah, clients don't know what the hourly rate is. I know what I'm going to charge, and then I know how long I need to book out to do a full set or a fill. So let's just say an hourly rate is $50 an hour, and I know that for a full set I need 3 hours. The service price is just going to be $150.
Yep.
So I don't say it's $50 an hour because then for me, I'm like, clients don't get to pick and choose. Like, oh, I want an hour today and like 30 minutes tomorrow, you know? So I don't say like, this is my hourly rate. I just say I have my hourly rate times by the amount of time. And then that's just the service. That's how I just make the service cost on my menu.
Yeah, so we have a lot of girls here that do charge hourly rates to clients. So they would be like, okay, so we're going to do a half an hour infill today, and that's what you get. That's how much infill you get in with our half an hour prices. Or you can book in for an hour, and this is how much you're going to get with our hour prices. And that's not stipulating if you're a newer lash artist or you're an older senior lash artist. And maybe an older senior lash artist can get basically a full set done in that hour, which would be ridiculous anyway. But then
Right.
the newbie would be like, oh, well, no, I will get like 40% of your lashes done in that hour, and that's what you're going to get today. So it is a little bit confusing for clients here because they say half set, full sets, you know, light volume, mid volume, heavy volume, mega volume. It's one thing that you say on your website. Stop comparing your prices to people in the area. Stop researching them. It's not what you need to do. And I'm so guilty of saying that, which is why when I saw your videos, I was like, oh my God, I have to get Kayla on to explain it, how it's actually going to be done now, because it's so important. And there's no one else better to explain it but yourself. Even I've said it before, research your competitors in the area so that you can see what everybody else is charging. But now it's like, see what your worth is and see how you're going, and then charge that hourly rate of what you want to cover all your expenses and plus more.
Just to kind of give an example too, because that was something that I was guilty of too, is teaching people. I was taught that of like, do your market research and then kind of charge above or below that. And how I always think of this too is like, let's say I have Sarah down the street that is saying on all over social media, she's booked and busy, she's making 100,000, she's making this 6-figure year and everything. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So I'm going to do those same prices. That way that equals, so I'll have a 6-figure year if I'm booked.
Yeah.
But Sarah works 7 days a week, 10-hour days, and this crazy schedule, right? And if it's like, well, I don't, or I can't work, and nobody should work that much on clients, like, why would I give Sarah the power to how much money my business makes?
Yeah,
right?
exactly right.
Also, what if Sarah, her overhead expenses, maybe she works from home and she has a home salon, and maybe her overhead expenses are like half the cost of mine. So she can maybe charge a little bit less and still have a good profit margin, where if having a rent payment every month at leasing a bed or a salon your expenses are higher, which can make your profit margin lower, you know? So it's like pricing is so personal to everybody because we all have different lifestyles. We have different things we value. We have different hours even available. I know a lot of people in the industry are moms, like you yourself, like you couldn't work 7 days a week, 10-hour days. Like you're like, no, I value time. Yeah, right. Even if you don't have kids or anything, like I don't want to be like at the salon and behind the chair that long. Like there's certain things, you know, that we all have different values. So it's making sure that it is personal to us, you know, that we're pricing on our numbers, our lifestyle, and what our goals are too. I think that's a huge thing that we get caught up in. It's just like comparing ourselves to everybody else. And
Yeah.
I was one of the first artists in my area to charge over $100 for a fill. And it was scary because I was like, oh my God, this is scary to be like the most expensive artist, because there were artists that were, I would say, more talented than me, especially with like artistry and texture and stuff. But I'm like, you know what? No, like this is what I want to make. This is what I want to do. I know I have an amazing customer experience. I know I have good retention. I do good lashes. And what that did though is it helped give these other artists the confidence to also raise their prices. All that does is elevate our industry for everybody.
Yeah, that's why it's sometimes annoying. You did course sales as well at one point and one-to-one mentoring training. And you do see those points in the industry where people will sell courses for $50. And then you're like, no, we all need to lift each other up. You know, we need to get up there. We need to keep our industry standards high. And it goes for the same as when you are being a lash artist and you want to keep those industry standards high and raise those prices and have all of us come together and keep those prices high. So I just wanted to know though, when you made the pricing adjustments, even as like a new lash tech to a senior lash tech, and even like doing the hourly rate, how did your clients take that? Was there any resistance or pushback from your clients when you made the change?
Not really, because I didn't really tell them like, oh, I'm changing hourly or anything. I just said, hey, these are my updated prices. I usually give my clients a 30-day notice. One thing that I did, which if you guys, when you saw in the example, I had volume and classic for two different services. What I did when I started doing hourly is I actually squished everything together to where I only have one full set and one fill option. So for me and my business, I prefer being able to have a client come in and I can use all the tools in my arsenal in order to give them a custom set. Because especially after being a lash artist for 8 years, I think anybody can agree. You can have two clients come in and they both want classic lashes, and one client is going to take you longer than the other, right? Because of just their natural lashes and everything. So I always know in 3 hours, I can pretty much get any type of style or set of what their desired look is on them. Because a lot of clients, what I would find is they would book the classic sets because they were cheaper. And then they come in the consultation, they would show me pictures of volume. And I'm like, you don't really want classic, or maybe your lash line won't, you know, be good for classic. But clients don't understand like our terminology. They don't know what like classic, hybrid, volume, mega volume, angel set, textured, wet set. They don't know what that means. They're going to come in and show you a picture of what they like. And it's your job as the artist, in my opinion, to be able to use all your curls and diameters and your mapping skills to be able to give them that look, right? And that's going to be different on everybody. You could do the same 8 through 13 cat eye 0.03 set on every person, and it's going to look different on every single one of them. So what I did is I just did a full set and a fill. I worked out what it was going to take, you know, for my hourly time. Clients are still required for it to be considered a fill to come in with 50% retention. So for most people, that's 3 weeks. Some clients prefer to come in at 2. And that's just like, as you have your clients, you kind of know like what is best for them and where they're hitting that mark. And then I just kind of let them know. And I always say highlight the benefits. Like I said, this is great because if you ever want to switch things up, you don't have to worry about messaging me about changing your appointment or us adding time or increasing the cost. It's just let me know if you want to change anything up, and we'll be able to do that in your appointment time no matter what.
Okay, yeah. So you were just saying that you have one full price and you have one infill price.
Mm-hmm.
What is your time frame for an infill set at the moment?
An hour and a half.
One of the things that I always have in the back of my mind is if a client comes in with 40% lashes on their eyes or 20% lashes left on their eyes for the infill instead of around 50-60% left on their eyes. And I know you said that you've got good retention, but what would you do? You might have a picking client. You might have a client that went swimming or a sauna and they just came in with less lashes. What would you do in a situation? Would you just tailor the set and let them know the price like you said before, or would you book it in for a full set?
So if they came in and they had less than the 50% retention and I had a client booked after them, I would say, hey, you're behind. I'm not going to be able to get you 100% full. I'm going to do what I can today, but you're going to need to come in for another fill sooner, or we're going to need to push your next one up in order to get you back to 100%. Otherwise, we're just going to keep playing catch up. You're never going to be super happy with your lashes. And then of course, I'll go over aftercare and everything with them too, because there's probably some reason why there was that extreme fallout. If I have time, because I do also have an extended fill, which is like a 2-hour fill, which that can be if somebody went like a little bit longer than normal, or maybe they want a really big style change and I need to like really remap and stuff. If I had time, then maybe I would either offer them an extended fill, or if I had time for a full set, I would offer it. And I always give the client the option. I'm like, we can do this, but in order for your next appointment, for you to fulfill the requirements of coming in for 50% retention, like we're going to need to book you another appointment or do an extended fill next time or something like that. So that's why I don't also do late fee. I don't cancel people's appointments if they're late. I just say, I'm here. I'm going to do what I can on you in the time that I have left, but we're going to need to book you sooner.
How would you handle a client that would never show up as well? Would you charge them a full fee, a percentage of the appointment, even though you're there and you're waiting and you're like happy to just be like, I can see what I can do? How would you handle a complete no-show client?
Oh God, yeah. A complete no-show client, if it's their very first time and they're like, I'm so sorry, I totally spaced, I'll still charge them, but I probably will only charge them 50%. And I just let them know like, hey, I'm going to just charge you 50%. However, my policy is usually 100 since this is your first time. But then anything after that, it's automatic 100%. I think when you're really upfront about your policies in the beginning, like when I have a new client, they actually sign my policies. Like they read and they put a signature on my policies, which is super important. And if you're not doing that, you should do that, because we can't just put it on our Instagram highlights and expect for people to read it or even have it on your website. Like you need to physically give them something to sign that they're agreeing to your policies. So I feel like that helps it not happen and they understand. And the amazing thing too is that when you build a really loyal clientele, most of the time they feel bad. And I've had clients that just send me the full amount before I even charge their card. You know what I mean? So I do think it's like kind of having that mutual respect. If you want that kind of respect for your clients, you need to make sure, are you consistent? Are you showing up on time? Are you rescheduling on them like every other appointment? If you're not doing that, then it's not going to feel as guilty when you're sitting there waiting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you must be consistent as well as the client being consistent. It would look pretty bad if you were like, oh, I need to reschedule, my car's broken down, or I need to reschedule because I need a babysitter, or I'm going shopping tonight. And then they miss one appointment. You're like, no, I'm charging your card.
Yeah.
Full service fee. It would be super unfair and inconsistent. How long have you been running your powerhouse program for now for pricing?
When I first launched it, it was called Pricing Hourly and with Intention. And I think that was like in 2020. So I think it's been about 3 years, but I've obviously relaunched it. I've relaunched it, I think 3 or 4 times. So it's definitely grown. It was a pre-recorded course that I voice-overed and stuff to now it's like a live course. So it's grown a lot and it's changed just because there's things people ask questions. I get more feedback from students. So it's been something that's just kind of expanded over 3 years.
So are you seeing like any positive outcomes both in your personal lash business and amongst all the other lash artists that you've been training? And what's the difference you saw in your outcome before and after with changing your prices to this method?
Yeah. So for me personally, with changing my prices to this, I was able to really know what I was going to make for the year or each month when I knew what my hourly rates were going to be. And if I was 100% booked out, like I would know what my projection was going to be. Where with my other prices, maybe one month I had 5 full sets and the next month I had no full sets. Obviously, that's going to be a really big change. And we saw what those hourly rate differences were, right? Yeah. So you're able to really project, which therefore then you can goal plan and you can be like, okay, I made $80,000 this year. Next year, I want to make 90. So we can plan our price increases, or maybe I'm happy with making 80,000, but I want to work a day less. I want to take an extra day off. you can plan those price increases and be able to do the math. And it's really simple math. Okay, I need to charge this much more an hour in order for it to supplement and keep it the same. I think students saw a lot of that too, where it was the very same outcome for them. And overall, when you charge hourly, I feel majority of people end up simplifying their menu. Like how mine is, maybe you don't just do a full set and a fill, but maybe you have like a classic full set and a volume fill. But a lot of people were doing like 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week fills with like classic
I'm
hybrid.
so guilty of when I did that.
I did too.
Definitely did it, and
too.
it was so hard. It was like, what week are we on again?
Yeah. Well, it's like
if it's, the last time you were here.
In 5 days, does that still count as a 2 week or a 3 week?
Like, week. Yeah.
Somebody can still come in at 2 weeks and have 0 lashes on, right? So it was all about retention for me, and every client's different. So I think a lot of people have liked that too, because most of the students that did charge weekly redid their menu to where it was a lot more simplified. And guys, that helps the client, because once again, clients don't know, and they're like, when was I in? Like, it makes it so much easier for them. They just know that they can book their appointment and they're good to go.
It definitely simplifies the process, because then I guess you can really identify if your client is a fill or a full set. And it doesn't like blur the line for the client either, because they just be like, okay, well, I know I'm going for a fill and it's going to cost me this much, but I know in circumstances where it might not even be a fill, I have facilitated this much just in case. And then there's no up or downs. It's not like, okay, well, today I'm going to charge you a 3 week instead of a 2 week in fill, because like you said, it might be 2 weeks and 3 days, or 2 weeks and 5 days. And it's like, well, actually, I'm a little bit low on my cash today, so I'm just going to charge you a 3 week fill.
Right.
And it's also great, but because like in your projections, if you were like, okay, I earned $80,000 this year and I want to be able to earn more, and I'm willing to add an extra day to my service because you might be a new lash artist and you want to expand your business, I guess you could work out if you wanted to do a pay rise, or if you wanted to add an extra day, or even if you wanted to do both, so that you could increase your yearly income and your projections that way. And you can really nut down and find out what projections you will be having, so that you can plan around that. Yeah, I love that. It's definitely simplified.
I always tell people too, like if you have a big change in your expenses as well, maybe you're lashing from home and then you're going to start leasing a salon, you need to redo your numbers, because you need to see, am I going to be able to have profit, or am I going to need to raise my prices to be able to move into the space and have this extra expense? So yeah, it's just like good for all around, I feel like, for no matter what situation.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's beneficial all around for students as well. I think it's fascinating to think about pricing your services on your self-worth, potential increase, income sustainability, and being able to understand your business inside and out, and be able to plan for your future. If you did want to open that salon, if you did want to bring on an employee even, are you going to be able to facilitate that? So one thing that really caught my eye is one day you posted a video on burnout. Now, I'm a criminal for burnout. I will just take on so much and spread myself so thin that I'm almost transparent with how much I'll take on. It's not a flex. It's actually really poor management skills on my behalf. But I know that you were speaking about burnout. What made you realize you were burnt out?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been burnt out like physically and mentally so many different times and in different ways. I think one of the biggest times when I realized how burnt out I was that I like physically was in so much pain, to where I'd actually pulled my sciatic nerve. And I never had felt a pain like that. I don't know if anybody's had that, where it's like your lower back, it shoots all the way down your butt and your leg. Like it hurts so bad I couldn't sleep.
You were working behind the chair. You were doing in-person lash trainings. You were offering business coaching, creating courses, event management, recording and editing your podcast, planning your podcast even, and then all the social media content behind it.
I think I was just like pushing myself too hard to with clients, like physically, like not taking breaks, not stretching, not taking care of myself physically either, to where it all just kind of piled up. And that was a big thing that I was just like, oh, wow, this is so painful. I kept lashing too. I was lashing through the pain. I was wearing a friggin' heat pack on my back, taking clients. And I'm like, this is ridiculous, you know? So there's been that. There's been definitely times of the mental burnout where I'm just like, there's so many things that I feel like I can't give my best to everything that I have going on. So I really had to sit back and evaluate what actually aligned with me, because I think that's something where we're like, oh, I want to be a trainer or I want to have employees, but your alignments and your goals can change, and just like understanding that that's okay and that it's okay for it to change, and you may let go of certain things. So I had let go of my in-person trainings because I was really trying to step away from just being a lash artist or just focusing with lash artists. And I really loved more the business side of things, you know? So cutting back that, even with the podcast, delegating certain tasks that were super time consuming and figuring out like, okay, yes, this is going to be an extra expense, but it's saving me this many hours for things I can work on to be able to make money in other parts of my business.
I think I even remember one time you saying it's not a flex that you're not eating and you're living off cookies
Oh,
a day. It's just not a flex. Like, go and eat your food, go to the gym, take your dogs for a walk, spend that time focusing on that little bit of self-care, because it's not cool that you're not eating and looking after yourself.
I hate that about the beauty industry because I feel like it's getting better, but it was like that for so long. And I remember I'm guilty of it where I was like, ooh, my fifth iced coffee today and I didn't take a break. And it's just, I'm like, why is that cool? Why are we glamorizing that? And then I was seeing videos of people doing it, making jokes of just like, oh, the diet of a hairstylist or a lash artist. And I'm like, guys, we're our own businesses. This is really dumb for us to complain or talk about. I'm never taking breaks. You are the one who has to give yourself a break. Like,
Yeah, like what was the point of you even opening your own business if you are not going to eat because you don't have time to eat? How poorly self-managing, what are you doing? Go and
yeah, when people complain too, being like, "Oh, I didn't get a lunch, or I didn't, I don't get breaks. I work 10 hours." I'm like, that's a you problem, right? Like exactly, like that's on you, not on anybody else. And I did that for so long
So
too. And
what strategies did you put in place to safeguard yourself from this reoccurring?
I just put in a reoccurring block in my schedule for a 30-minute lunch every day that I was taking clients. So no matter what. Another thing is that so I have my clients booked for an hour and a half, but after every appointment, I have a 15-minute buffer. So that way I have 15 minutes, go to the restroom. And if I need to eat a quick snack or drink some water or stretch for a minute, that I have that buffer time to be able to do that, get up and walk around, move. I think those are two huge things to be able to just kind of take a baby step of, doing that. And then also just like little things with starting my morning. I don't look at business stuff right away. I have my morning routine where I drink water and maybe read or whatever works for you. Just make your morning about you and taking care of yourself. Because I really do believe that you can't pour from an empty cup, and you have to fill yours first to be able to give your best to your clients. Your clients deserve you to be at your best, especially if they're paying you like these top dollar prices. You should be showing up for them at your best. Not when you're tired and you're broken down and you're dehydrated and your head hurts because you aren't taking care of yourself.
I love that you said, if you're not looking after yourself, then what are you going to provide to your clients?
Mm-hmm.
That is so true, because if you're sitting there tired at the end of the day,
Yeah.
what kind of service can you provide to them that they're
Well,
going to pay you?
I only take clients, it's like 6 hours. I think it comes 7.5 with my breaks and everything in there that I'm at the salon. But I only am physically taking clients like 6 hours. And I would find when I was doing like 5 or 6, sometimes 7 clients a day, by my last 2 clients, I wasn't doing my best. I was fucking tired. I was like, I just want to be done. Like, I wasn't giving them my best. I could tell. I was like not as energized or into it. So I'm like, they don't deserve that.
Sometimes when you've done so many clients a day too, and you get to your second last client and you're like, okay, no, I've got an hour and a half to do this fill. You're filling their lashes in and you're like, oh my God, I've got 5 minutes left and I haven't even been able to get what I usually would get done because I'm just so tired. Like I just can't even move. I can't move past.
Oh, yeah.
And then your next client walks in and you're like, oh, I need 10 more minutes because I didn't realize the time because I was falling asleep basically on her forehead trying to get these lashes on.
Yes.
So if you could offer a piece of advice to our students and to younger lash artists out there that hold immense value to you, and you would like to see that ripple through the industry, if this video went forward and got out there, what would that advice be for those younger generations that are just starting out?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, I feel like I have so many pieces of advice, but I'll try to keep them concise. I think when you're starting out is just to remember that it's your business. There's no like specific blueprint of a certain way you have to do things or a certain way you have to price or anything like that. Like I always say, your business, your rules. You can take guidance and, learn from people, but put it into your own way of doing things, and be open to that, right? And then otherwise too, I think like overnight success is not a thing. In the industry lately, we've been seeing a ton. I see it with coaching, I see it with building clients where it's like fill your books in 5 days or hit six figures in 3 months. That's not really a thing. It takes small steps every day and just enjoying the process of where you're at and just enjoying it, like enjoying the ride and not
Like I
comparing
think
yourself to everybody else.
yeah, I think if your business why is I want to make 6 figures in 3 months, then you really need to reassess why you're opening a business.
Yeah.
If you're not in love with what we do in the industry, then you're
Mhm.
never going to love what you're doing. It's not going to have longevity in it.
Yeah.
If you love what you do and you want to do it every day and you want to thrive and come up with new things in the industry and new ideas, and that's where your like longevity is going to be. You're going to be in this industry. But if you're here because you want to go and buy the new Hermes bag tomorrow, then you must just walk out of the industry now because you won't survive.
No, for sure. And I think that's such a big misconception. I hate seeing those posts where it's like become a lash artist and make six figures. And it took me it was like year three for my first gross six figure year, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
it
another
was
thing.
year
I'm like,
three
there's
for
a
me
difference
too.
between gross and net, And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of people think like, oh, six figures. There's a lot of business expenses that come out of that. You may only be taking home like 40 or 50. I think just not looking for a quick fix. Be really grateful for the journey that you're on. Make a small step every day. I always say like those deposits into the bank that are going to just grow and grow and grow.
As we wrap up this episode, it's time to give a big virtual hug to our amazing guest, Kayla. Your insights have been like a backstage pass. You've guided us through the maze and difficult questions surrounding the pricing and have provided great insight into avoiding burnout. We're seriously grateful for your time and your real talk and you taking the moment to help me educate the next generation of lash artists and future educators. For a deeper dive into the insights of the remarkable Kayla and to stay connected with her fantastic podcast, you can find all her information and social media handles linked in the episode description. Dive in and soak up all the knowledge she has to offer. We're signing off for now. Thank you. Until our next episode, lots of love. Bye bye.
Thank